bird pulling, leg pulling, the minute world of the war game, with tabletop retreats from Moscow, mayhem in miniature. Fly-tying miracles of precision as silk thread hook shanks and dyed feathers are manipulated to tickle the fancy of salmon and trout. Moving upwards from the miniature hobby world, steam lives on. In private railway systems are powering powerful scale locos. Hobbies demanding time and patience, but bringing a rich reward in achievement, preparing the way for the power game at the far end of the hobby spectrum. Here's Turbosonic, really a tractor in nothing but name, powering up and towing an increasing weight for 100 yards. Sounds simple, but behind it is a fascinating story of determination, gifted engineering, and sheer dedication. Tractor pulling developed from horse pulling. Starting in the United States in the 60s, it has swept the Western world. Today, these colourful beasts pull at various United Kingdom events under the authority of the British Tractor Pullers Association, with getting on for 1,000 members forming a cross-section ranging from agricultural and allied industries to people who work for manufacturers like the Nipper and the Massey lads, all on a hobby basis. Away from the roar of the crowds, success lies in preparation. The Massey lads, knowing that about 10 pulls are enough to take the edge off the tune, go through housekeeping routines for maximum performance.
500 horsepower.
I think that should beat that bloody Ford this next year then.
We're going to need something because we're 2 cylinders.
Tuning is a fine art, from careful scribing of the ports to smooth out gas flow to the head. The more air, the higher the performance, and many operations to pay the track to success. More air, that means turbocharging.
Okay, you got it, Dick. All right.
Tim Turner tells Reg Mead of Massey about Nipper's brazen throat.
So, Tim, with the introduction of the turbocharger, this is another stage in the power game.
Yes, Reg, we've got a twin-stage turbocharger, which basically is 2 turbochargers connected together, this being the small one and that being the large one. The gases come out of the engine and spin this one, which in turn spins this one. That creates a pressure of the incoming air, which comes down this big pipe. Yes. It comes out of here at about 300 miles an hour. It goes round and into that turbocharger, which then pressurizes it again. And it comes out and into the inlet manifold and then on into the engine.
Now, when it reaches that stage, what sort of pressure
have
you increased it to?
We're making it produce about 100 psi in there.
Now, how does that compare to a standard engine that's turbocharged?
Well, a standard turbocharger kit for any diesel would give you about 10 psi. So we're about 10 times as much as normal.
Yes, so it's a factor worth considering if you're boosting an engine.
Oh, the only way to go.
Yeah.
Together again in its elegant body, the Nipper, a European champion, arrives at Great Eccleston to try its muscle against enthusiastic pullers from all over the United Kingdom and the continent. The final magic takes place. Old friends meet and new ones are made welcome. Top up the tank, choose back-end ballast for the track. There's an air of excitement. Uncompromising brute force from Astwell Spudnik, which started life as a Fordson. Primrose Perkins, aerodynamic swept body, stylish organ pipe exhaust banks, Woodall Warrior, another slinky custom to par projectile. Forest bootlegger, they say she runs best on bathtub gin. Perhaps there's too much tonic, but there's always willing hands. A push start? Lancashire lady, always ready for a fugue on her upswept pipes. Ken Smith in the cockpit, with enough power under the seat of his pants to plough a rock pile. A scrutineer checked the drawbar. Weighing in of tractor and driver establishes competitive classes within the main groupings. Sam, too, weighs in at 3,351 kilograms. Red Rooster is in the same class, has been putting a little weight on. A richer mixture, 3,425 kilos, and all muscle. And now it's time to introduce Big Daddy, the familiar Central and Southern England hulk, the key to the sport. It's called a weight transfer machine. The further up the track it's hauled, the heavier it gets. A great box travelling up the inclined ramp to bring more and more weight over the steel sledge at the front in contact with the ground. The red safety light is flashing, turning green only when it's okay for the driver to go. The tractor backs precisely into position and is hooked on, and a safety plug activated by the brake is fitted to the engine to stop it in an emergency. Scrounger is raring to go. Green flag means that the track is clear and go when ready. Meanwhile, at Eccleston, Primrose Perkins gets the green flag and a good off, hauling another version of the weight transfer machine. This is a test pull. So then, take a tractor, breathe on it, hook it up to a brute weight, which inexorably gets heavier and heavier, and bomb down a track to find out who can pull the mostest the furthest. That's tractor pulling, a rugged sport for the rugged individualist. Okay, we've got a tractor, we've got the power, but in the end it's ground contact which transmits the whole bowl of popcorn to the track. Some drivers, depending on the track, feel they get better traction with the tires in reverse. Here's Nipper's boots, specially made for tractor pulling by Firestone. They have a very soft, spongy wall, but very hard tread bars. They cost around about £1,800 when new, so it's a brave man who sharpens the treads, usually after every event. Most tractor tires run soft, only 3 to 4 psi. But what of the body, the transmission, the clutch, the gearbox? For the modified class, it often starts here, in the friendly neighbourhood scrapyard. Here is the raw material for the hobby and the sport. While there's the classic English rose, Mrs. Barnsley, there are no ferries at the bottom of this country garden, but Terry Barnsley up on Whirlwind. Let him tell you all about it.
I built my tractor out of a Westland Whirlwind helicopter. I started off by having a look round the dealers for an engine. I wanted a light engine, high horsepower. So I rang all the dealers in the country and I eventually found a Whirlwind Mark 7 made by Westlands in Luton, Bedfordshire. We bought the helicopter, and there we did a deal with a man at Auto Air Helicopters, brought back to Bobbin Hall by John Bowen Jones of the Tractor Pullers. We took the engine out of it, brought it down home and started fitting it into the frame. Unfortunately, the clutch wasn't suited to tractor pulling. We had too much drag on the axle. So I had a look round some of my contacts where I got the aircraft engine from, and they know where there's an old Chieftain tank, a 40-ton, 700 horsepower tank with a centrifugal clutch. We're going to fit that in. I've stripped the old clutch out. We'll have some fitments made, and I hope to be tractor pulling again, and this time just get a little bit better.
Tractors are organised to a class system with all-up weight groupings. Let's start with the modified class. Here's the much modified Lancashire Lady. Modified class means anything that goes as long as it's got tractor tyres on. Next, Superstock class. For example, the Nipper. Superstock means a standard engine block, standard transmission and final drive, and still retaining the manufacturer's silhouette. But the head can be modified with turbochargers feeding each other in turn into the engine. And, by the way, the manufacturers must have made 150 tractors of the type before the souped-up version can be designated Superstock. Finally, stock. Standard tractors, but beautifully tuned. It's everyone's sport. Modified class, and how. Sputnik, a really hot potato, pride and joy of Paul and Peter Turnham, belting off in fine style. Merry Miller, power to spur, grinding fine down the track. David Hayward, true grit. Scrounger, with elegant hatted John Heather powering his yellow peril to even better performances. Pull till you spin, then anchors on and wait for the marshal. The rules are to be obeyed. The reputation of the sport is based on common sense, discipline and safety, not just for the driver, but with the enormous power unleashed, marshals and supporters too. The event goes on, the track takes a pounding from the applied thousands of developed horsepower when it gets kinda hammered, so the heavy mob goes in to harrow it, and then consolidate it to a firm, good-going surface, watering it if it's too dry, all to create a power track. Permanent tracks like this one at the Royal Showground are made by digging out the ground, dressing with breeden gravel for all-weather drainage, and ideally a top surface of a clay mix. Nothing is as simple as it sounds. The year goes by and the points mount up. The Royal Show has a big entry list. Tractor pulling is popular with the public, attracts television coverage, and is a great day out for the family. Tractor pulling is big in North America. The sport is accelerating in Australia, New Zealand and South Africa, Belgium and Holland, Germany, Scandinavia coming up fast. But at the moment, it's still the historical Anglo-Saxon devotion to large lumps of machinery which encourages the sport. Fuel ranges from standard pump to the exotic alcohol methanol mixes just short of explosive, with the injected water to keep things cool. In Holland, where the sport is very popular, there are also indoor pools, earplugs and respirators readily available. It's lineup time, and the next event is raring to go. The Massey Modified, maintenance-free, gets away to a good start. But whoops, she's offline. She hasn't reached the first white flag, so smartly back to the 0 mark. So pick another gear, or change your boots, and off again. Royal Show, warm, sunny, just a touch of a breeze. When a wheelie develops, then it's steering by left or right foot brake. A good pull, a strong pull, no penalties and good points. She's fitted with a Perkins 6-cylinder engine, turbocharged. Turbosonic, smoke and dust with John Walker's Formula One silhouettes pulling straight and true. That's the smell of hydrocarbons in the air, not his namesake's whiskey. Lincoln Way, Superstock class, basic Ford, bought from Belgium. Mike Hansard has been tractor pulling since the start. Nipper, beautifully tuned, lean as a racehorse and power to spare. Tim's got her nicely balanced, no waist contact with the track, doing her level best. One to remember, Superstock and proud of it. Alternative power, maximum power at minimum revs. The dear old steamer marks a day earlier in the year at the Festival of Transport at Yeovil. Hazy, rainy, windy, cold, typical puller's weather in some people's book, but still a lovely day out for the family. Auto junk, the fun of the fair, and tons of fun in the pits for the dedicated travelling supporters. Familiar faces, familiar zero-hour problems, all to be located and dealt with by spanner, torch, hammer, or a little tickle here and there. The merry-go-round loses the musical battle as Smoky Joe blips his throttle, waiting for the green. The flagman takes his duty seriously. Every little helps in track preparation. Smoky Joe's away, hard and fast, tyres gripping, power pouring down to the wheels. John Jones at the charge. And a one-fingered Harvey from the Marshal. Patriotic John Heathers, Union Jack Topper and resolute profile, holds Scrounger on her way. Can he smell the sausages cooking?
He had some good pulling today. Oh, we're pulling well tonight.
And at the end of the day, it's relaxation time. People you know, tales to tell, and the joys of the barbecue. Tractor pullers are special. They are self-financing and very independent. For some, the five-star hotel, but not for many. Camping, horse boxing, caravanning, cabbing, or a ground sheet under the stars. The family get together with friendship and relaxation. Even the wild muskie has time for a cheerful wave. The Nipper family awaits the culinary contribution of Hazel Turner, neatly doing short-order cookery in the back of the pickup, while the Massey lads abandon diesel for good honest chow. And now, later in the year, it's the Town and Country Festival at the National Agricultural Centre, with its familiar trees, track and turbo howl. At this meeting, Terry Whirlwind Barnsley was the commentator. Scorton Firefly, a Whittingham in the saddle looking good. Modified Rapture. Green light flashing for the Nipper, with Tim at the wheel, and the front wheels kissing the deck only when they feel like it. Tim's educated feet on the left or right brakes keep her where she ought to be, way out in front, as events were to prove, and down at the shadow end, the Marshal notches up another classic pool. Lincoln Way, super stock, getting to grips. Modified Avon Lady at Mark 1, with a little help from the camera. Chris Keel dreams of breaking the sound barrier. Roaring Rolls, Rolls-Royce petrol engines, an ex-fire engine, and then tickled up and turbocharged. You can't hear the clock. And so the day went on. Magnificent men in their pulling machines, sometimes blinding success, other times a date with a drawing board, or a glance through the yellow pages for an army surplus depot.
A lot of interest because it was an
Pulling over the years has evolved rapidly, with owners developing extremely efficient ways of adapting their rigs to meet the challenge of competition.
Go up to the reverser we have, and when that problem occurred, it carried into a few other pieces, and we tore them up a little, so I guess we've had a bit
The
of
annual
luck over
awards,
here.
the icing on the cake, and first king-size spectacles for Pulling Pig's driver to help keep him on the track next season. Ted Moult, popular broadcaster, is roped in by Power Farming, who supported the meeting, to present the trophies and awards, as reported by Michael Rose of Par Farming, and covered by Richard Humphreys of British Pooler. Hardwick Beast, David Craig, did well and qualified for Europe, modified class using 2 Jaguar V12s. Then it was time for Tim Turner for the Massey lads to collect the British Championship Awards for 7,000 and 9,000 Superstock, at the same time qualifying for Europe, where they successfully defended their European title. So then, a wingding sport of action, noise and thrills, an absorbing hobby calling for ingenuity and applied engineering skill, whether the tractor is from the fields or an imaginative hybrid, with enormous power tamed by technology into a docile, powerful beast. The power game takes shape. The men, the engines, the piston-straining hulk of ponderous weight, the tires in contact with the track, biting in like the hooves of a willing horse. Tractor pulling calls for the best in men and their machines. No pot-hunting gamesmanship in this sport, just honest competition, enthusiasm, and generosity of time and knowledge to a friend in need. Tractor pulling, the heavy end of the hobby spectrum, is here to stay. It's satisfying, it's constructive, and by golly, it does you good. Pulling over the years has evolved rapidly, with owners developing extremely efficient ways of adapting their rigs to meet the challenge of competition. Not only for the driver and his family, but for the thousands of people who turn out and support the amiable drivers and their monsters which bring colour, sound and excitement. The factors which explode an appealing sport into the power game.